And I was joking that I have changed Luke's ostomy appliance in a Buc-ee's bathroom. So shout out to Buc-ee's for having immaculately clean, spacious bathrooms with all the space to be able to change an ostomy bag. So I know ostomates, if you're traveling on the road, not only is Buc-ee's worth the stop, but it is a great place if you need to change your appliance. So that
Yeah.
is my
Well,
plug.
I will say, hey, Bucky's, Nick Speaks needs a sponsor. And by the way, they're coming to Ohio in April. So you better best believe I told my staff, put that date on the calendar because we're going.
We're going to Buc-ee's. I love it.
Welcome to the Nick Speaks podcast, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud for the disabled community. Tune in every Tuesday, and don't forget to subscribe. And now your host, Nicolas Comstock.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. I'm your host, Nick Comstock. You guys, thank you for joining me for another incredible episode, another incredible Tuesday. Things are starting to warm up out there, so hope springs eternal, as they say. I hope you guys are enjoying the weather a little bit. You guys, I am so excited because I have a return guest with me today. Emily Kendall is here, and when she was here at the very beginning of the year, her episode has been the highest rated episode so far for 2026. This time around, we're going to talk about her and her husband's, I guess you could say, real estate initiative, apartment initiative for people with disabilities called Empower Me Living. She is giving people hope. They are giving people hope, her and her husband, Mark, to find accessible, affordable housing. So we're going to talk about that and so much more. Help me welcome back Emily Kendall to the program. Emily, how are you doing?
Hi, Nick. I'm so great. I'm so glad to be back. I agree. It feels great outside. It's warming up. It's nice to see that sunshine and, of course, to see your smiling face. And I'm just thrilled to be here today.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Emily, the last time you were here was the first episode for 2026. And a lot of people reached out to me and said, wow, this episode was really informative. They didn't know about your son Luke's condition. A lot of them hadn't heard of that particular thing. So your episode uh struck up a little bit of a conversation as far as that goes and different things. And then we mentioned in the last episode that you were going to come back on, and here we are less than a month later. You're back on, and we're going to talk about disability and housing, which you and I are on a housing group together
We are.
through the state of Ohio right now, trying to improve housing for people with IDD and developmental disabilities. So, why don't you talk to us about Empower Me Living and how that all got started? And for those of you who are listening, you're going to want to watch this because we have a PowerPoint coming. So, if you're listening right now, make sure to go to the YouTube channel and watch it later because you're going to want to see the PowerPoint.
Great. Thanks, Nick. Well, I was honored to be on last time and talk about our journey with our son, Luke, who does have that condition called Hirschsprung's disease, which required some surgery when he was born and ultimately ended up in creating an ileostomy for him, where his small intestine is routed to his stomach. There are over 1 million ostomates in the United States, and it's a pretty incredible group of people. And this can be a life-saving surgery for so many. So always happy to answer questions about that. And um, I was talking to someone earlier today out at lunch, and whose son also has Hirschsprung's disease. Believe it or not, that's Luke's specific condition that led to all this. And I was joking that I have changed Luke's ostomy appliance in a Buc-ee's bathroom. So Shout out to Buc-ee's for having immaculately clean, spacious bathrooms with
Yeah.
all the space to be able to change an ostomy bag. So I know Ostomates, if you're traveling on the road, not only is Buc-ee's worth the stop, but it is a great place if you need to change your appliance. So that
Yeah.
is my
Well,
plug.
I will say, hey, Bucky's, Nick Speaks needs a sponsor. And by the way, they're coming to Ohio in April. So you better best believe I told my staff, put that date on the calendar because we're going.
We're going to Buc-ee's. I love it.
Yeah.
So for your listeners, Nick, they got to hear about our journey. Uh, I have a background in sales marketing, and I spent the bulk of my career in commercial real estate. My husband, Mark, who I talked about last time, is a commercial construction professional and has spent his entire career in commercial construction. He's built over $375 million worth of projects, everything from the NASCAR Hall of Fame all the way to the Duke Law Library to historical renovation to multifamily. He's built a wide variety of projects. So our professional lives have set us up to really lean in to answering a question that we have and millions of other families like ours have is, where is Luke going to live when he grows up? He is going to outlive us. He is going to need some kind of support. And what does that look like?
Yeah.
So Mark and I met at a company that built, owned, and operated student housing apartment communities all over the country. That company was very high growth. We had an initial public offering on Wall Street, and I ran leasing and marketing for that company for about 4.5 years. That's where I met Mark. Fast forward, oh gosh, 15 years now. When Luke was born, about 3 years after he was born, we had an opportunity to shift our focus in life, and we decided that we'd set out and answer this question: where is Luke going to live? And where are the millions of other people like Luke going to live when they become adults? We've made.
And I
Go
applaud you
ahead.
for that.
Well, thank you.
I applaud you for that. And I had to stop you right there and say
Do
this
it.
because a lot of parents, especially mine, a lot of parents with special needs kids just automatically assume that there is no other alternative. They will die with me or I will die taking care of them. And that's just not feasible.
No, well, no, and n- it just doesn't work. It's not sustainable. We've made so many advancements in healthcare and early intervention and education. It's almost like as a society, we forgot that that means people with developmental disabilities are going to live much longer, higher quality lives. If Luke would have been born when the same I was born in 1982, I will reveal I was born in 1982. Apparently, it was a very good year for Chateau Lafite in France, if you're into wine. Um, Luke's life expectancy, if he would have been born in 1982, would have been 30. He was born in 2019. His life expectancy is 60. Well, you can do the math and figure out how old I am and take a guess that statistically Luke is going to outlive me, and where is he going to live? So Mark and I just happen to have the professional experience to try and dive in to help solve this issue. And I'm going to share my screen so that um, your viewers can see how we think about this and how we are setting this up. Nick, I'm so excited to talk about this and give viewers and listeners a sense of how and why we structure things and think about things and how we're trying to tackle this issue. So, to paint a picture for listeners and viewers, there are 77,000 plus adults with developmental disabilities in the state of Ohio that live with caregivers older than 60. In the 4 counties surrounding greater Cincinnati, there are 12,000 adults that live with caregivers over the age of 60.
Wow. That's great.
So it's a lot. And then when you look at the increase in autism diagnoses that have been occurring, the CDC, I think their latest was 1 in 31 are impacted with autism spectrum disorder. 26%, I will have to check the stat on the Profound Autism Alliance's website. 26% of people with autism spectrum disorder have profound autism. So that is a growing segment of the population. And in our own research, we found that 37% of the 77,000 to 12,000, and you can extrapolate those numbers nationwide, about 37% reported having higher support needs, meaning 24/7, one-on-one, two-on-one care. And our system is just not set up for that. And I come from real estate. I talked a little bit about my professional background. I come from real estate. And we look at what we're doing as a bridge because right now, nonprofits and the government aren't solving it at the scale that this needs to be solved. And then if
Nope.
you look, no, they're just not. And that's reality. That's not a commentary, that's reality. On the
Yep.
other hand, Wall Street and capital markets, they're not stepping in to solve it either, even though the demand is clearly there because it sits in the middle. So supportive housing sits in the middle. And we are trying to carve this middle lane to say, hey, we can develop and operate a range of solutions that meets the needs of this diverse population, and it doesn't have to rely on all government funding or nonprofits. And let's bring the private capital and the markets along to really tackle this challenge and solve this problem. So we look at what our work is building a bridge and forging this new way and making these connections to build longer term, more sustainable solutions to housing and supports for people with developmental disabilities. So we have 3 organizations that work together to accomplish this mission. The first is a recent initiative of ours called the Empower Me Center for Housing Innovation. One of the things we realized, Nick, is that first of all, there hasn't been a lot of research and data directly from the source from people with developmental disabilities on what they want and need from housing and supports. So we
Right.
partnered with an organization called First Place Global Leadership Institute out of Phoenix, Arizona. This organization, the people there are absolutely the most phenomenal people. They're brilliant, they're light bearers, they're leaders. They are a think tank focused on issues facing adults with developmental disabilities. It was founded
Awesome.
by an amazing woman named Denise Resnick, who has a son with autism and also started her career and spent the majority of it in commercial real estate. And
That's awesome.
she is who I want to be when I grow up. So we realized that we would need to go out and get data directly from the source and reference and make sure that people know what people with developmental disabilities want and need in housing. So we did that and we published this report, and I will send you the link to it so that you can link it in the show notes. We
Yeah.
published this report, and then we looked around and we realized the people making decisions about housing in our region, in our state, they don't know about this population. They might know peripherally or tangentially, but they don't know. And so the primary goal of our nonprofit right now is to take this treasure trove of data that we have and disseminate it to people that are making key decisions that affect housing in our region and across our state, that do not know or consider people with developmental disabilities when they're looking at some of the challenges facing our region. So that is a big priority for our nonprofit right now. And we have several events, educational events. We have an educational webinar coming up next week on the 25th, where our teammates, and we have an incredible team of people, um, two fantastic women, Sam Cleaver and Reagan Sears, that are indispensable to the efforts that Mark and I are trying to lead. So we're hosting a pod, not a podcast, sorry. Well, I'm on a podcast right now. Sorry, it's getting late in the day, listeners.
Yeah.
Uh, so we're
Yeah.
hosting this webinar next week where we will talk about some of the key findings from this research. So I will link to that event as well. But that that organization right now is focused on raising awareness outside the developmental disability community, because Nick, like, you and I
Right.
know about the issues,
Yeah.
but does the mayor of Cincinnati really know? I don't know,
Right.
but he's going to know now because I'm going to tell him.
Well, the people in power, even in Congress and in the highest office in the land, they really, and I say this all the time, they really have no idea what goes on. And there's a bunch of people in power making decisions, life altering decisions for people with disabilities, but they have no idea because they either don't experience it or they have a very vague idea of what it's like to be in our life. And I tell people all the time, they're like, well, the president doesn't care about us or whatever. And this is on whatever side of the aisle you're on. The president doesn't care about either side of the aisle. They don't have, the president especially does not have time to care about us. We have to make our issues known because they're dealing with so much other things, foreign policy, everything else. And so if we're not the loudest people in the room, it's our own fault, in my opinion, in many ways.
Well, Nick, it's a good thing that I am the product of a mom who grew up with 7 siblings and a dad who had 3 younger brothers. So I am very loud.
Yeah. I grew up in a family like that too, where you had to be loud in order to get your point across. So yeah.
Not afraid to be loud.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I love that you say you're building a bridge, because one of my parents' favorite lines for me, and I think for a lot of special needs parents, is we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Well, um, this is why it's important to build a bridge now, because we need to start making plans to cross it. Because I hear all the time, you blink and then your kids are college age. I'm not a parent, but that's just what I've heard all the time. And you're figuring out, oh, we're at that bridge we've been talking about for so long.
We gotta build it. But we also know that adults and families face this cliff effect when they age out of school. And there is you stare at the cliff and there is no bridge. So we are building this bridge, and that's where the next layer comes in, is Empower Me Living. Empower Me Living is a real estate developer and real estate services company. We focus on developing the asset, um, running the property, so property management, and then we provide a layer of supportive services for not billing Medicaid, Medicare. I don't. That's not in our purview, but we provide this, what we call, extra layer of support, kind of like a glue that holds everything together and helps adults and families with this bridge and continue to go beyond this bridge. And then we have a construction company that will actually physically build our projects. So this is an interdisciplinary approach. This is modeled from best practices at the real estate companies that I've worked with, where everything is integrated and has an in-house view, so that you are taking advantage of operating efficiencies and economies of scale and being smart and sharing resources. So on the horizon for each one of these entities, the Empower Me Center for Housing Innovation I talked about, we're very focused right now on education outside the developmental disability community. And and mainly with other real estate developers, uh, government leaders, people who are pulling the levers in our communities. They need to know we have this data. They need to understand and know about this data so that when we're talking about the Greater Cincinnati Regional Housing Report, the next time that gets published by the Chamber of Commerce, I want to make sure that there is discussion and talk and recommendations about people with developmental disabilities and housing and support needs. I have the data, I can give it to them, and we can have a conversation about how we make sure that people like Luke are included in these conversations as we plan for the long-term flourishing of our region.
Absolutely.
Eventually, I want to be able to have some kind of investment fund where we can invest in all kinds of neuro-inclusive housing projects around the country. That's a whole other topic that we can unpack for another day, but that would be an impact investment fund. That is my ultimate dream.
Yeah.
Empower Me Living is working on a really cool project right now. We're finishing one up, and we have a ribbon cutting next week. This is a really cool project. We've got I'll talk about the two that we've just achieved some big milestones on recently. So a few years ago, a congregation on the west side of Cincinnati approached us and said, "We have a parsonage on our property that we would like to ensure becomes housing for people with developmental disabilities." This is a beautiful, spacious, single-story ranch house. It's not totally accessible, but it makes for a great home for somebody that doesn't need mobility accommodations. And it's
Right.
on the property of this church, and there's a congregation ready and with open arms to welcome new neighbors with developmental disabilities. So we partnered with the church and we found a gold standard service provider that's been around for over 50 years here in Greater Cincinnati called Ohio Valley Residential Services. This is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single story ranch right on the property of St. John's Union Westminster Church, and we are excited to do a ribbon cutting for that. We got Cincinnati Development Fund involved. Kendall Building Group did the renovation, Empower Me Living did the funding, the development. Ohio Valley Residential Services will provide the services. It will be a licensed group home, and they really, it's an elegant solution because the church needed somebody to be able to manage and run the property and provide services. Ohio Valley Residential Services has other properties like within a mile or two of this particular location. And we opened up a new source of funding using American Relief Act money, ARPA, that came out of COVID to be able to get the renovations done. One of the other things that I love about this particular property, not only is its location and the amazing neighbors, but it has an office. So it's 4 bedrooms plus an office, which I think is a great kind of staff backstage area, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody doesn't need their staff all the time, there's like an offstage area that staff can go do paperwork, get caught up, and everybody kind of has a little bit more space and privacy, which I really love about the way that this house is set up. So that's opening next week. And then I'm very excited to announce that Ohio's first microhome community just made it through zoning approval in the city of Oxford, Ohio, home of Miami University. New Roots Oxford is a partnership between Empower Me Living, Kendall Building Group, and Inclusive Housing Resources, which is an incredible organization that provides housing here in Greater Cincinnati, and City of Oxford. And the city of Oxford had 2 acres that they wanted to develop into affordable housing. And we came to them with this proposal for a neuro-inclusive community that's home ownership. So the houses will be for sale. They are 600 to 900 square foot single family homes. And they are universally designed. So 0 grade entry. They have accessibility features, things like wider doorways, We'll be very intentional about, the type of door handles and light switches that get put in these homes so that they're great for aging in place, and they pull in some
Right.
great features of universal design. So I'm excited to announce that that made it through zoning, and we'll be submitting for permit and breaking ground. And
That's
then
all.
yes, yes, and we're working on other projects, and like looking for seed capital and project capital, because again, we believe that we need to build this bridge between the pure market, which in many ways is more efficient at solving problems than the government and nonprofits. Like, there's this bridge that we need to build so that we can get more capital to do more of these, to do more. And this has a ripple effect for other groups that need supportive housing. So there's so many, this we think this will start to create a flywheel. And then Kendall Building Group is doing the construction for New Roots Oxford, and then we are actively seeking expansion to build more neuro-inclusive projects. We changed the focus of our construction company to focus specifically on projects that enhance neuro-inclusive community building,
Sure.
primarily through housing. So
Sure.
that's background about our companies.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions for you. So
Sure.
you say you want to go outside the developmental disability or to get people to understand it. Is Empower Me Living working towards possibly, because one of the segments in our community that also struggles with housing are veterans. So are you guys working to eventually to expand to veterans as well?
This is right now, our focus is neuro-inclusive housing, developmental disabilities, right?
Oh,
We think that that is a group that has been so underserved.
sure.
Now, what I will say is that through the Empower Me Center for Housing Innovation, a lot of what we're going to learn and iterate and incubate and research will absolutely have positive implications for groups like veterans. And we welcome the opportunity to collab with groups that are supporting veterans, because we think there's some natural overlap and natural synergies that we can learn and share with each other. Because at the end of the day, my colleague Sam says this so beautifully. Like, at some point in time, every single one of us is going to need some kind of support. And I watched this with my own mom. My mom was a physical therapist assistant. She worked in hospitals and nursing homes. This was a 110-pound woman that could lift a human being 2 times her size, and she got Parkinson's, and she was suddenly the one that needed the support and help. And I thought my mom was invincible. And we learned as a family that that landscape can change and you're going to need supports. And one of the first things that my dad did when she got her diagnosis was they sold their house and they moved into a single story ranch up the street. So so we're all going to need supports at some point in our
Yeah.
life. So there are implications beyond people with developmental disabilities. And that is what I think is really cool about what we're doing. So think about Empower Me Center as really kind of like an open source
Sure.
collaboration lab. And then I like to say, Empower Me Center is the dream it, Empower Me Living is the do it, and Kendall Building Group is going to build it.
Wow. That's an amazing mantra right there, and it fits so well. So I'm a little just a little bit confused, and maybe it's because like
Sure.
we're at the end of the day taping this. Um, so does Empower Me Living, are you guys working to be landlords for people with disabilities, or am I
Yeah.
the mark?
No, that's exactly right. Nope, you're exactly right. We're going to be landlords for people with developmental disabilities. And our thesis, Nick, an important piece to mention in all this, and our data from our housing market analysis shows this: people want to have choices. I don't know where Luke is going to want to live when he grows up, but I want him to be able to have a choice. He could choose to live in an accessory dwelling unit on our property, and Emma, his big sister, lives in the main house, and they have a great little life. He could want to live in an apartment community with peers that also have disabilities. He could want to live in a or a mix of people with and without disabilities. He could decide that no, like he wants to be in a community, but he prefers to not be in a stacked apartment complex. He wants his own individual home. Um, I'm gonna let Luke I'm gonna let Luke decide, but I look at my role is to make sure, but that by the time Luke gets to make that decision, there are a plethora of options for him to be able to choose from.
Right. Right. Because right now, people in our community, I don't know if you want to go to the next slide or if this is it. And
Yeah.
if you want to go to the next slide, you can. Um, People in our community we're kind of, ooh, I like that.
Ooh, trees.
What,
I know it's pretty.
um, people in our community, we're kind of stuck with the one choice unless we really fight, which is go in to a home with a roommate, and then if we know that the roommate situation doesn't work out, we'll get you your own apartment. So we're kind of stuck with the choice. We don't have a lot of choice right now. So I like that your company is doing this because it needs to be done.
There isn't a lot of choice, and 80%. Our research shows 80% of people still live at home with their parents for that very reason. And that's not a sustainable solution, like we talked about. And with the example within my own family, I don't know how my parents, what they would have done if Luke would have been their son, and my mom would have gotten as debilitatingly sick as she did. So it's really important to start offering choices. And I think the system today, and this is one of my challenges to it, they kind of like, well, what you take what you can get. It's kind of a take what you can get mentality. And that's, again, I am not diminishing or dismissing the incredible work that many nonprofit organizations have done, but they're doing it with limited resources and getting, what government funding they can. And that just reinforces this cycle of, oh, don't take what you can get. And also that Luke is a charity case. Luke's a person.
Yeah.
He like why I don't he's he's a person. He deserves to have choices just like any other person. So that's kind of the dynamic that I'm pushing back on a little bit there, that like, and I think that's a very, I'm a business major, and a lot of there's a lot of like either Keynesian or Milton Friedman, whatever school, there's this idea that the markets will solve it. Well, the markets aren't solving this because, there's not pure return. But then then on the other end, like in my previous graphic, they're not solving it either. So one of the things that's really important in our bridge, in our building, is not homemaker personal care, Medicaid waiver build services. This is a layer that we call supportive amenities. And our friends at First Place are really good about articulating what supportive amenities can mean. And for us, and research shows that people are looking for services and supports like this. So we
Right.
came up with this program called EML Plus, and it's focused on skill building, social engagement opportunities and hangouts, and then resource navigation and support. So when you move out of your family home and that's all you've ever known, there's a learning curve. And that's true whether, you're going off to college for the first time, whether you have a developmental disability or not. So our program is open for anybody that's looking to build some life skills, but it's designed in a way where it's neuro-inclusive. So for people with developmental disabilities and their families that are thinking about moving outside of the family home, there are skills that need to go along with that move, and how do we build and maintain those skills to live outside the family home? So that is a big critical piece of our EML Plus program. Then there's a social component. Um, you know, some people with developmental disabilities, like Luke, I don't know what, he is largely nonverbal. He might have some barriers to planning a social engagement, and I'm his mom, and I'll do that when he's little, but like I want him to be able to have access to social opportunities without me always having to plan them, right? Like I want him to be able to have some agency over that. So social engagement and opportunities to hang out and build friendships and hang out with people that you feel comfortable with is a
Oh,
really important element of this program. And
so did you start this program as well with the Empower Me Living?
yes, this is part of Empower Me Living, and the idea is that this program is included for residents. It's included in rent, but then we thought, well, hey, we're already doing the program, and when we have properties, we're working on developing our properties. Um, this won't be yet up in New Roots, Oxford. We're looking at exploring how that ties in, but New Roots is a little bit. It's a home ownership model, so it's a little bit different. But
Please
for we
come to
plan.
Columbus.
All right. Well, we
Uh,
plan to build apartment communities and go out in broader communities, and this will be included in rent. But then we realized, okay, we're already doing it, so why don't we offer it to the broader community? You don't have to live with us to participate in this program. The other thing that we offer is support. So participants in our program, if they can book one-on-one time um, with our team leaders that run our programming, and they can talk about, hey, like I'm navigating an issue with my roommate, or I'm looking to I want to get a job. Do you know of a coach that could help me? All kinds of issues. And um one of the parents of these are all parents. Our current program is running based out of our Anderson location, where our headquarters is. And I had a parent in the video, and I can share this so you can link it. She said, and this is something that really struck with me. She said, anyone can say that they're doing inclusion, but it's quite another thing to feel like you belong.
Absolutely, 100%. I had someone on my program who said that it's not about including somebody, it's about making sure that they belong. It's about belonging.
It's about belong, and that looks different for everybody, and that's not
Mhm.
a government defined term. That is a self-determined term. And I think we've gotten into this weird space where sometimes people, you know, try and claim ownership over what belonging looks like for somebody else. And I like that. That's self-determination 101. And we all know, and this is what we say, we're not just building a real estate company. We are building real estate where people feel like they belong, whatever that means to them. Like we want the goal to be, we're building, we're building belonging, because we all know, whether you have a developmental disability or not, we all know what it feels like when we feel like we don't belong and when we feel like we do. And we
Yeah,
want more of when
absolutely.
we feel like we do. That's what we are going for. And so part of, again, Nick, our thesis is choice. There should be a range of choices. But how do we like, so we're going to create these hub properties. So if you don't want to live in an apartment community, but you want to live in an accessory dwelling unit in your on your parents' property, your sister's property, whatever, and still get plugged into what's going on at our hub, you can be a part of this program.
Yeah, and I
Um,
love that you keep bringing up that it's about choice, especially here, because we're both in the state of Ohio, and one of Ohio's hallmarks, especially in the disabled community, is that they're person centered, and a lot of times they have to be reminded of that. And I love that you're helping through Empower Me Living remind people at the state level, hey, your mantra is we're person centered. Let's put that into practice. I love that.
Well, here's what I will say, Nick. It's person centered based on what the person wants, not what you define it as for them.
Yeah,
That is where
absolutely.
I think people get hung up.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talked about yesterday in our pre-call, you know, um, I still feel like there's some like my apartment building where I live now, it's all people with disabilities. But I kind of want to change that because if you ever have a firehouse, because we've had fire people show up, I've had the ambulance come get me several times to unfortunately take me to the hospital. And one of the first things that they say when they notice that, I'm a person with a disability and I have a caregiver with me is who runs the facility. And so I want to get out of that dynamic because I don't live in a facility.
No,
I,
you live in an apartment
yeah,
community. Just like, and you have your own lease and you have your own, like, it's not like we consider that's kind of the F word. But what I will say, because I do think that we need to be very thoughtful about the reality that there are people with developmental disabilities that require a higher level of support, and the current offerings are failing them, and they're ending up in psychiatric institutions and worse,
absolutely.
like jail. And and um I think just because someone is quote unquote in the community doesn't necessarily mean that they belong, and it can be just as isolating.
I wish I could jump through the screen right now and give you the biggest hug because oh my, you're saying you're in the system, so you're saying everything that I try to say on a weekly, daily basis through my social media platforms. All right, so is this your last slide or is this
This is it. This is
okay?
this is EML Plus. EML Plus is designed. So I come from a student housing background, and we have all kinds of stuff like this, kind of similar for college students, right? Like we had social stuff going on. We had amenities, and it made what was an apartment complex for students into more of a community. And I think that's also this missing layer in what's currently out there is there's no opportunity for
Mhm.
real community building, and a recognition that some people need help and support building a community, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we should be able to provide that should be able to happen. They should be able to have like our like this is their program, like, so they help drive like they help drive the curriculum, they help teach the curriculum, like for our adulting program. um because we do have some people that live out on their own, and they can help, like it's all like this really cool, like peer-based learning and having fun. And it's been pretty amazing to see. It's been pretty amazing to see what happens when you can when you can reduce some of the friction to building community. That's what we're trying to do.
What are you hoping to do? What do you think what kind of difference are you trying to make as opposed to your normal your normal run of the mill HUD housing property? How are you trying to distinguish yourself as
I that this supportive amenities layer is really what helps distinguish us. And then look, I think I will say this. Want to build all types of housing, affordable, market rate, 'cause that's all what's going to make it work, right? Which is low income housing tax credits. very competitive. Not enough funding goes to that. And it's really onerous to get through for developers to get those tax credits. Yes, it has helped unlock a lot of affordable housing, but we need to push on how we can make that program better and come up with new ones. HUD, the voucher program, it's good, but I will tell you, I've been a landlord and I know landlords get a bad rap, but here's the thing. When you're capped on the rent that you can charge and all the costs to operate your property go up,
Yeah.
you have to start making sacrifices about how you run that property and try and figure out how you're going to plug the gaps if you can't raise your rent. Because when gas goes up and you've got to remove snow from your parking lot, the cost to remove that snow is going to go up because gas has gone up. And if insurance to insure your property goes up, that's going to go up. And then a lot of these programs come with a lot of unfunded mandates. There's an incredible book. I've talked to you about it before. It's called Abundance. It's by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. And they talk about how, the government has kind of gotten in the way on changing our housing supply and building high-speed rail and doing a better job at energy. It's a really interesting listen or read. I highly recommend it.
We'll do that.
And do it. And it helps you understand, like California, for example, with all the money that they have spent on trying to resolve homelessness, the homeless population has increased. And it's because they aren't willing to build more housing across the board. We need all kinds of housing types across the board. We have too much demand chasing too little supply. So we need to be focused on
Really do. Yeah.
building more housing supply and building more neuro-inclusive housing supply. And I think we need to take a good hard look at how we do. Well, we all know this. Everybody knows that we need to look at how we do housing in this country and how we can do it better and differently. And I think part of it is getting out of our own way so that we can increase the supply
Yeah.
faster.
So is Empower Me Living, are you landlords now for people with disabilities, or are you still in the beginning
Not yet. We're in the beginning stages. Not yet. But that's the goal. And again, having a landlord that I think that's the other key piece. Our goal is to educate other landlords on being landlords to people with developmental disabilities, because it's going to take all of us, right? But having landlords that understand how to be good landlords to people with developmental disabilities is another important part of our mission. Whether it's us being a landlord ourselves or educating, that's part of what the Empower Me Center will do, is educate other developers, landlords, how we need to increase the supply. If Empower Me Living can't do it all.
Yeah.
Nor do we want to, because we believe there should be a marketplace of choices. We do think group homes are great. We have lots of those. We need more of something different. It's not a one size fits all solution.
Nope.
And so we need more choices. We need more choices. Full stop. And we need to, like, common business sense is you build and make things that people want. And that's why we did this housing research that shows here's what people want. They want more choices. They want to be able to live in an apartment with their peers. They want to be able to live by themselves without roommates. They want to be able to live in an accessory dwelling unit. They want to be able to live in a mixed use neighborhood that has apartments and townhomes and single family homes. There's people want to have choices.
Because I think one of the problems, especially with me getting an apartment on my own, I'm someone who needs 24/7 total care. So I think that runs into the issue too of, well, the state doesn't want to pay for that. Plus your rent voucher, and it's just a lot of money and all that. So how can we fix that too? How can the two and two go together? What are your thoughts on that? Because I shouldn't have to stay in a home with roommates that, number one, I don't get along with. We're not on the same scale mentally or even as far as disability, but I still need the care, you know? So how do we deal with this?
I think that's where we've got to get innovative, and we've got to think about, um, we've got to bridge. We have to stop putting the solutions all on the backs of the nonprofits or the government to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then we have to access new sources of capital. You're right. There is not an unlimited pool of funding available from the government. I guess they could print money, but that would be very problematic. And so we have to get more creative. And I think, Nick, I'm curious to ask, like, I know that you need 24/7 care, but you don't need someone like in your sauce 20, like, right? Like, you need people to help you when you need that help. And I think, how do we come up with models where staff can be shared better? That's not necessarily in a group home, because that's that's not the right like, right? Like, we need to get creative and dive in, and there are
Right.
great organizations thinking about this.
Well, yeah, and even in places in Florida, I've heard where, like it's almost at a condo situation where there's 24-hour staff around, but if that person doesn't need 24-hour staff, they can go somewhere else in the building and work with somebody who needs them. And then when that person needs them again, just haul it for somebody else, you know?
Right, but it's not an institution, it's an apartment. There's several. So Florida, they get, pretty sure it's through their low income housing tax credit program. They get, the state of Florida Housing Authority and the federal government, they get money from the federal government, and the state of Florida Housing Authority decides, okay, we're allocating this much a year to our low income housing tax credit program. They have carved out specifically 20, I believe it's $25 million, and I can't remember if it's every year or every other year,
Yeah,
just for neuro-inclusive housing. Just for neuro-inclusive housing. That means that someone like Empower Me Living doesn't have to compete against every other developer that's just trying to do affordable housing.
sure.
There's a focus on neuro-inclusive housing, and there are some really cool projects that have resulted from that, um, because Florida has made that decision. The group that I referenced earlier that helped us with our market research, they published this report called A Place in the World, and I will send you the link so that you can link it in the show notes. But it details innovative models all over the country, and their most recent edition does talk about and focus more on people that have 24/7 support needs, and what are some great solutions that we can come up with to think about how we do this better.
What do you say to parents that are like, but I don't even want to think about my special needs child living on their own. It's just not going to happen.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say, like, I'm sorry to tell you that there's going to be a reality where you no longer can provide care for them, whether you're dead. I mean, I don't mean to be
Right.
harsh, but my grandma always said there's two things that are certain in this life: death and taxes. So that I, but I will tell you, you've got to start somewhere. On our website, we have some good resources. Read our housing market analysis, read A Place in the World, and then we have a presentation that talks about housing choices and options, and how you can start thinking about all of this, thinking about supports, thinking about the actual brick and mortar housing, thinking about what amenities are important. Um, like that like social engagement opportunities, like a social calendar at a community, right? Those
Yeah.
kinds of things, you can start thinking about that. And then for adults that want to move out, like, you can start thinking about this too. Start thinking about what you want your community to look like, and where do you want to live, and all on the place where you can download our report. We have a lot of those resources to help families think about what this means. And then I I don't know what Luke's future holds. I know that it's very bright, but I think about like how can I help start building in for him? Like, I don't know, I make him help me do the dishes and clean and pick up his room and make choices about what he wants to wear and eat and help me in the like he likes to help me cook. Like he's only 6, but I want to start having him start building those skills.
Yeah. I want to go back to some, and I know we have to wrap up here soon because of time, but I want to go back to something that you said earlier on in the show. And you said, it's really no different than someone with an who is non-disabled. You have to learn all these curves. And I want to not necessarily push back on that a little bit, but I want to challenge that a little bit because, oh, you know, my brothers who are not disabled did get the training and things that they need, and they did get, you know, this is how you budget. This is how you do this. And a lot of the people that I grew up around did go through that. And I think a lot of times the reason why parents with kids with disabilities, a lot of times we are unlearned because parents don't think we're going to have to deal with any of that because of our disability. And like you said
I
earlier, there needs to be a reality check.
well, okay, so that's like so who taught your brothers those things? Like
Exactly.
did your parents teach them or did they like
Well,
I think there's remember I ran I thank you number 1 I thank you for challenging me because I do think you brought up something very interesting which is a thing that I think about a lot where people don't assume competence, right? People don't assume competence, so they don't teach. And you're right. So there's a lot of unlearned. And I think you're such a great advocate to help remind people that no, you got to presume competence here. I also can just tell you that remember I manage a student housing portfolio. This is a program that I would have loved to give to a lot of the students who are living outside their
oh,
family
sure.
home for the first time, right? Like, we had a lot of grease fires. We had a lot of um, people driving cars into buildings. Sometimes, like, we had all kinds of things. So, but oh yeah, oh I have lots of stories. I think what you're hitting on is this idea of um, presuming competence and our program presumes competence. That's really important. That is really really important to us is presuming competence because you said it too, there's going to be a reality check. This is going to go from this is an inevitability, and I will tell you the scary flip side of the inevitability is that 30 to 40% of our homeless population likely has some kind of developmental disability, and they ended up being homeless because they lost their caregiver.
Yeah, that's oh my god, that's so scary. That's why
Mhm.
I I pushed it so hard, and I told my parents, I said, "I've got to be out on my own." They're like, "Oh, you're always gonna be taken care of." And I'm like, "By who?" I can't always rely on family. I mean, I appreciate the fact that they felt that they knew that I was always gonna be taken care of, but this idea that just because I have a disability, I should always rely on somebody else and not worry about life and just it's crazy.
Well, and thank you for being such an advocate for this, like right like this, like and showing that you like this is not unattainable and challenging that competence piece. And I understand what you're saying. It's like, oh, thanks. I'm glad, like I know that Luke's siblings will be a part of his life, but I don't know what their lives are gonna look like. Just
Right.
like I didn't know that my mom would get Parkinson's at 62 years old, right? You just
My goodness. Yeah.
Mhm. Right? Like you it's so important, and it's keep doing this, please. Just keep
Oh,
doing it.
it's coming. We've got a lot of things coming at Nick Speaks for the year 2026, and it's coming. Emily, I want to thank you so much for being here. Again, what are your last words before we wrap up? Um, for people that are maybe thinking about their child's just about to age out of school at the age of 21 if they're in a special needs program. What should parents start doing?
Presume competence
Yeah.
and start thinking about the plan, and you don't have to bite the whole elephant at once, but
Yeah.
start thinking about it. Just start having the conversation, but above all else, presume competence.
That's awesome. Emily, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you on another show, I'm sure, soon. And I'll see you soon because we'll be working together next week on our continuing project. So, you guys, thank you so much for being here. This is the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. Remember to visit my newly launched website, nickspeaksofficial.com, if you want to be on the show or want to have me at a speaking engagement. And remember, that's how you can get a hold of me, nickspeaksofficial.com. I will see you again next Tuesday for another great episode. Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Nick Speaks podcast, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud for the disabled community. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a new episode. You can find Nick across all platforms by visiting his link tree in the show notes. And please leave a comment to join the conversation. Until next time, keep speaking up, keep speaking out, and keep speaking loud.